Many people believe that we'll have a housing market crash that's going to be worse than 2008. There are some factors in today's housing market that are actually worse than 2008. So today we're going to talk about it. We're also going to talk about what exactly you should do if you want to buy a house this year. So make sure you stay until the end because I don't want you to end up in foreclosure. But first, I need you to hit that subscribe button. If you want to get better at real estate investing, you have to follow this channel. Also, make sure you go to the description of this video. I have a free training that's going to teach you how to invest out of state. First, we need to look at some data that completely blew my mind. In Q4 of 2008, the median home sales price in the US was $222,500. And in Q1 of 2024, the median home sales price was $420,800. That's an 89% increase in the median home sales price since 2008. And I know for many of you watching, where you live, it's gone up even more than that since 2008. That's not the craziest part though. Watch this. In 2008, the median household income in the US was $66,280, and in 2022, it was $74,580. That's only a 12.5% increase in wages. Do you see the problem here? This next step will give us a reality check. In Q4 of 2008, the average 30-year fixed mortgage interest rate was 5.84%, and in Q2 of 2024, the average rate was about 7%. So the median home sales price since 2008 has gone up 89%, wages barely increased over 10%, and interest rates have had their highs and lows over the years, but it's clear that the biggest issue we have is this ridiculous increase in home prices. The fact of the matter is homes are way less affordable now than they were in 2008. Let me explain. At the end of 2008, the median home sales price was $222,500 and the median household income was about $66,000. The average interest rate was about 6%. Based on that salary, you could afford a mortgage of $1,650, as that will be 30% of your income. If you put 20% down on that median priced home of $222,500, your mortgage would be about $750 per month, which would be doable for most people making the median income. Now, if you thought affordability might be the same in 2024, you're wrong. The median income as of the last census was $75,000. And based on that, an affordable mortgage is $1,900 per month. But here's the problem. The median home sales price at the end of Q1 of 2024, as I mentioned, was $420,800. And if you put 20% down on that property at the current interest rates, then your mortgage would be approximately $3,100, give or take. That's $1,200 more than a household making the national median income can afford. And I know for many of you who live in really expensive places where homes are way more than $400,000, the affordability is even worse. Now let's look at how this is impacting people today.
The problem is getting worse. It's not getting better.
According to Realtor.com, the median price for a home in Phoenix is around $520,000. Head west to Goodyear, prices average about $20,000 more. Go east to Gilbert, $100,000 more. Mark Stapp, a professor of real estate at Arizona State University, says everyone is battling high interest rates and high prices at the same time.
In fact, we haven't seen home prices fall. They've remained rather stubborn, and I think that has much to do with the available inventory.
Available inventory throughout the valley is slim. Stapp says Arizona is locked in because homeowners with mortgages at 5% or lower are not giving up those rates.
You're going to start seeing them spend money on home improvement projects, so it's going to be more crowded at the Home Depots and the Lowe's and the places like that.
Economist Jim Rounds estimates you need to earn $75,000 to be considered middle class. That's about $10,000 more than the median household income in Phoenix.
So the very low income folks are the ones I'm the most worried about, because no matter how they adjust things, they're still going to come up short. And they will benefit when we start to see the prices come down. It's just going to take a little longer.
Experts can only predict when they think things will improve, but Stapp says a set of factors need to fall into place first.
Interest rates have to come down. Wages have to continue to rise. Inventory has to grow substantially for available homes. And we have to have enough change in inventory that the supply and demand effect begins to work, and it stabilizes the price of homes.
They've been promising that interest rates are going to drop significantly for quite some time, and it hasn't happened. If I were you, I would not put my hope in interest rates dropping because it may never happen. And if it does, is probably not going to be significant. He also mentioned that wages continue to rise. Remember, he said in Arizona, you need to make about $10,000 more than the median income in order to be considered middle class. So any of you watching, if your job gives $10,000 raises every year, drop it in the comments and let us all know so we can all apply. I do agree with him that inventory needs to increase in order to stabilize the market. In one of my recent videos, I did talk about the fact that in some areas, inventory is getting back to pre-pandemic levels. Real estate is local, so what's happening is going to depend on where you are. Now let's learn about how this is impacting millennials who are trying to buy homes.
Top of the list in terms of most expensive, most of them in California. San Jose, you've got to make $361,000. LA, it's almost $300,000. San Diego, almost $260,000. And then San Francisco, I mean, that is pricing out an entire generation from this housing market.
Yeah, I think that's true. We don't see very many first-time buyers in these markets because they are well-established markets where prices are very high. If you look at the calculation of what it costs to buy, it takes over $250,000 to buy a home versus what it costs to rent. It's expensive, but not as expensive as it is to buy. And so many are making that decision in these large markets to rent. That's why we see home ownership rates in these large markets trail behind the typical U.S. housing market. So it is challenging in these markets. But even though it is a pretty challenging market, there are some areas where we do see opportunities, in particular in the Midwest and in the South, where home prices remain relatively more affordable. And although it is a dire situation if you compare to 4 years ago, where we're looking at much fewer homes on the market, compared to last year, we are seeing an increase, and a significant one. Homes on the market for sale are up over 30% compared to a year ago. And if we look at the below median price point of $200,000 to $350,000, homes in that price category are up by 40%. So we are starting to see a bit of a turnaround, a bit of improvement, but from what is still a pretty dire situation for young people.
All right, I need to say it. I think it's an absolute joke that in some of these cities, you need to make several $100,000 in order to buy a home. It's unbelievable. The median income, which I've covered in other videos, does not support purchasing a home in many of these larger cities. So if the average hardworking person who's going to work every day and doing what they have to do, if they can't afford a home and they're priced out, then who can actually afford the homes? Who are those people who can afford the homes? You let me know what you think about that. If you live in one of these markets they mentioned in that clip, or in an area where you just find it too expensive, I recommend you consider investing out of state. That is literally the only reason that I've been able to be a real estate investor, because I live in California and it's simply unaffordable. So it's something I highly recommend you consider. If you're interested in that, I have a free training in the description of this video. Definitely make sure to check it out. As a reminder, make sure you stay until the end, because I'm going to be talking about several things that you have to do. I strongly recommend you doing if you want to buy a house this year. So make sure you stick around. There's another factor I don't really see people talking about online, so we need to discuss it. The next thing we need to talk about is institutional or corporate landlords. Many of you watching believe that they're the reason that homes are unaffordable. So let's look at a real life situation.
Brand new neighborhoods with brand new houses seem to pop up weekly in Central Florida.
Yes, they do. But in some of these communities, the homes are not for sale. West U's Meredith McDonough takes us into these rent-only subdivisions.
I previously resided in New York and came to Florida for the good weather, more family-oriented environment, fresh air, sun, beaches, all that good stuff.
Joanna Becknell was looking for the perfect home, and she found it at Binion Reserve in Apopka. With so many new neighborhoods being built in Central Florida, this one is unique. The homes are not for sale, but for rent.
I was surprised. Normally you see apartment communities going up, and to see a community of homes going up. And I said to myself, goal, next year, I'm going to get a house. And here I am.
This community is one of 9 owned and operated by American Homes for Rent. You may have seen some of the rental home communities in Apopka, but also at Sky Lakes in St. Cloud and Celery Cove in Sanford. Brent Laundrie is the Executive Vice President of Development for AMH. He flew in from Atlanta to take us on a tour of Windward Hills across from the Orlando Apopka Airport.
So in Central Florida, and really across America, we are short housing in general, and we believe that we need more housing options, quality options of all sizes and shapes for families in all sizes and situations. We build 3, 4, and 5 bedroom homes and create a lifestyle for folks seeking a single family option with a low maintenance lifestyle and flexibility of leasing.
I want to acknowledge one thing. Not everybody wants to be a homeowner. Some folks plan to rent long term and they just don't want that responsibility. All right, now that we got that out the way, I know you're watching because you're interested in buying a home, whether it's a home to live in or whether it's a rental property. Listen to me clearly. These companies who are renting properties out to you, they want you to become comfortable renting from them. So they're going to give you all the bells and whistles. They want you to feel like it's your home. And if you are someone who aspires to be a homeowner or to be an investor one day, do not get too comfortable. Do what you have to do, but don't lose sight of your goal of home ownership. So save your money, make your plans so that you don't have to stay there forever. It's okay if you need to rent for a certain period of time. Everybody's been there. But if your goal is to buy a home, if that is your goal, do not lose sight of it when you're renting from one of these companies if you decide to. I need you to brace yourself because the level of nonsense that we're going to see in this next clip is unbelievable. They truly want you to own nothing and be happy.
This neighborhood will have 101 homes with a community swimming pool and playground. We toured a 5-bedroom home. It's 2,300 square feet and about $2,900 a month. That includes mostly everything except lawn care, which is $50 a month.
At $2,900, the rent includes your property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, and obviously your monthly rent for living in the community. And that's a 1-year lease minimum for our residents.
Inside are the amenities of a brand new build without the headache of home ownership.
One of the greatest benefits we offer for our resident is peace of mind, knowing that repairs to a water heater or an appliance or the roof, as you mentioned, we take care of that for them as part of their monthly rent.
This really resonated with Joanna when it came to finding a home.
I don't want to be responsible for landscaping, plumbing, electrical.
Just to be clear, the rent includes property taxes, insurance, HOA fees, and then you have to pay an additional cost for your lawn care. So to me, it sounds like you can't even mow your own lawn or choose someone who will charge a cheaper price to mow your lawn. You have to pay them to do it when you're already paying them for rent. And I have no idea why a renter would be responsible for paying HOA fees. They don't own the property. If you have to buy a home for the time being, I do not recommend renting from one of these companies. Some of you have left me comments talking about your negative experience with these companies and all the fees that they tack on to whatever you're paying them for rent. I recommend going with a private landlord or a smaller company. It's a good chance you have a better experience if you do it that way. They also mentioned the headache of home ownership. The reality of it is home ownership has unexpected expenses. However, these are things that you can prepare for. And if you've watched any of my videos, I always talk about having reserves. I always talk about protecting yourself. And part of protecting yourself is making sure you have enough money for when things happen. And I'm a landlord. I'm an out-of-state landlord. Repairs come up, things come up. Take it from me. Nothing is ever that deep. Nothing is ever that serious. If the place is in good condition, in decent condition, most repairs are just a call away. If it's something that's a larger repair, you call around, you get a few quotes, you pick one, and the work gets done. It's really not that difficult. So don't buy into the fact that home ownership is just this hard, insurmountable thing. If you prepare for it, whether it's a place you're living in or whether it's an investment property, if you prepare for it in advance, you'll be just fine. And I'm speaking from experience. I'm warning you right now, this next clip is going to upset you.
These rental home communities are popping up all over Central Florida. In Brevard County, Condev, a family-owned real estate development company, is building the Landings at Viera, located at Pineda Boulevard and Stadium Parkway. Rent will range from $2,600 to $3,500 a month. The developers say the American dream of owning a home is changing with the needs of their customers.
That American dream of housing may not be in the form of ownership all the time. I think, there are other parts of the world where very few people own homes.
Which is interest rates and the cost of home ownership in the current market environment. This is becoming a very, very viable segment where people are choosing to, as Chris pointed out, to rent a home that they might otherwise have bought. When this community is fully built out and mature, you're going to walk through it and it's not going to look or feel any different than one of the for sale neighborhoods, down the street.
Developers say you'll see more and more rental home communities in Central Florida because the demand is only growing.
As a single mom, especially, it's difficult to be that one income in the household and not having to come up with tens of thousands of dollars, but still being able to provide my family with that same sense of home and togetherness and harmony under one roof without feeling like we're crammed in a sardine can is really amazing.
In my last video, I spoke about how people will be forced to sell their condos in Florida because of all the mounting fees, insurance, and all of these things. But now, at the same time that that crisis is going on, all these build-to-rent communities popping up throughout Florida. I know I can't be the only one who thinks that this is not a coincidence. I truly believe all of this stuff is connected. The reality of it is, for the majority of Americans, most of their net worth is in the value of their home. So for these guys to say that that is no longer the dream for people is crazy. I'm here to tell you that it's possible. You just need to think outside of the box, which is why in just about every video, I'm offering you something that you can think about to get you closer to home ownership. It's possible. You just might have to get a little creative in this market. Now, all of you watching, some of you are renting because that's just the situation you're in and that's just what you have to do. I know for a fact that the majority of you watching are not renting because you want to. So don't believe these lies that these folks are saying that the majority of Americans want to rent. I don't buy that. It's just another way to desensitize you from the desire to own a home. At the end of the day, they want you to rent from them forever. When I read these next stats about institutional landlords, I couldn't believe it. Depending on the source, institutional landlords own between 3 to 5% of the total single-family rentals in the country. This becomes a problem when they have a large market share of homes in a specific neighborhood or in a specific city. According to Urban Institute, as of 2022, institutional investors owned about 28% of single-family homes in Atlanta, 24% of single-family homes in Jacksonville, and just over 20% of single-family homes in Charlotte. So clearly, we know what's happening with institutional landlords now. However, it's important for you to understand how this all started. I think what we find out is going to surprise you. Wall Street firms entered the single-family rental market after the 2008 housing crisis by purchasing foreclosed homes. Since then, their influence has continued to increase, and the number of corporate landlords today is significant across the entire U.S. housing system. Single-family and multifamily housing, manufactured housing such as mobile homes, subsidized affordable housing, and student housing. Many entities, such as hedge funds, were able to leverage their financial resources to purchase foreclosed homes wholesale. Instead of selling them, many investors chose to enter the rental market, providing a vital source at a time when families were facing credit challenges. So back when there was a crash, these investors were buying up these properties that were foreclosed on. Now, fast forward to 2024, and many people in America simply cannot afford homes. So these same investors are building homes to rent to you, or they're buying the homes that are available to rent to you. So you can't afford your dream home, so they'll simply just rent it to you. One thing is clear. The impact of institutional investors is worse now than it was in 2008. Can you see what's going on here? Let me know. Now we need to talk about what to do if you want to buy a house this year. The first thing you have to do is get your house in order. And that means having 3 to 6 months of your living expenses saved. That's incredibly important. If you have consumer debt, work towards paying that debt off. If you're buying a home to live in, do not buy a home with a mortgage that's more than 30% of your take-home pay. I know a lot of people out there say 30% of gross, but that's not an accurate number. It's not an accurate representation of your household budget. If you're buying a rental property, make sure you have enough reserves to cover the mortgage payment in the event that you have a vacancy for longer than you expected. Do not allow anyone to pressure you to buy a home. I don't care who they are. It has to be the right time for you. Period. If you can't afford to buy a home where you live and you're unable to move right now, then I would encourage you to consider investing out of state so you can at least build up some cash flow, or preparing to move at some point in the future if it's possible based on your situation. The last thing is, if you have to stay where you are and you want to buy and it's incredibly expensive, one thing I would think about is, who else do you know, who you trust, who also wants to buy a house? If you have one other person, maybe the two of you get a duplex together. You each live in one side, you both go on the loan, and you split the mortgage up. You work with the lawyer, figure out the paperwork, etc. And it can be done with a 3-family, with a 4-family, etc. So think about some of those things too. A lot of other cultures do it. You might be watching, and maybe people within your culture do this regularly. But I think everyone should at least consider it, because it could mean the difference between ownership or renting forever. As I always say, my job is to help you think outside of the box. So I'm going to continue to deliver information and do my best to give you different tips and insights so that one day you can be that real estate investor. Like I said before, I don't want you to buy more home than you can afford and end up in foreclosure. I want you to buy the correct way, in a way that is sustainable. So keep watching this channel. Now that you know how unaffordable homes are in 2024, I want you to learn about 5 homes you can buy from Amazon for $40,000 or less. Check out this video right here.